because questions are changing faster, we need more flex in the system. So it's a big question of how to do that, right? And you and I have been at the same company before, so we've seen different models of how to do that, and swarm teams and slam teams and different things. I think for me, the headline is role boundaries are becoming more blurry, and we all have to live with that. And I'm actually intentionally trying to set expectations with my team that, like, yeah, you might have brand insights on your title. Like, you might be the Jameson brand insights person on our biggest brand, but I'm going to have to ask you to lean into bigger questions on business intelligence and diagnosing business performance, or maybe understanding pricing, or really thinking more deeply about like bigger questions related to the shopper, and vice versa for my shopper team, who's helping me tackle some brand questions on how we drive engagement and brand love in whiskey, for example, and in the on-premise or in our bars. So there's the expectation that it's not going to be as much of a static role is an important one to set with the team. And for me as a leader, I feel like I'm kind of more in like a management consulting role in a way, because I'm figuring out those business needs up front of like, where do I need to spend my team's time way more frequently than before? And then adjusting the team to be able to do that, right? And so it's like, okay, when new questions pop up, which are inevitable and happen every month, right? It's then, who has the skills to help me tackle that? Who has the capacity, or how can I create capacity? And who do I want to stretch into something new, and like, who's ready to tackle something new? So it is a lot less of those like kind of fixed role boundaries than before, which honestly, I think helps us as a function. Like, we're a specialist function, but the more we think of ourselves as marketers that can tackle any problem, I think the better off we are. The other thing is way more time in the front and end stages of learning. So how do we squeeze time out of the middle, right? So for me as a leader, it's like, how do I help upfront set the, like, what's really the business question besides the one we get asked? How do we make it a bigger question? What's the decision we're going to drive, all that. At the end, it's how do you help tell a compelling change story? How do you help wire, a decision? How do you help, actually take it to some kind of action? In the middle, how we're trying to squeeze out is, one, I think this is where more of like the tools and technology come into play. So, those light, fast, do-it-yourself types of tools for quick questions and kind of A/B screening new ad concepts or pack concepts or innovation ideas or whatever, right? Like, that's the way I think many of us are doing it. I think we've all been using AI and machine learning for a long time, right?
Sure.
Like we've been doing it at least 5 years, I think, from like in pieces of how we do all of our standard research. So I think for me, it's more piloting how you increase that work there. So for example, in social listening, which a lot of us do to kind of find big themes and trends, or scraping kind of search trends and things like that, it's like, how do you do that even more efficiently with some of those platforms that you can use? And using partners that can help you get to that faster, to then get to a deeper insight faster, right? Or how do you take a small sample of actually doing consumer research and project that out using different models and tools to then move faster, so you're not spending as much time in field? Or how do you use machine learning live and quality quant, like, to then actually like optimize in the moment, instead of having to go write a report and I come back to you 2 weeks later with something like, let's just take a decision now and like sit in it together. But it's that good old balancing risk to rigor and finding like tools and tricks to squeeze time out of the middle, because that's not really where a lot of the value comes, right? Like, a lot of our human insight and thinking, critical thinking value comes at the start and at the end. It's a good question. I wouldn't say it's a tool as much as, for all of the tools we use, where can we, like, from everything we do, from the good old ideation, optimization, validation, where can you use tools along that whole process? So I'll give you an example of where we're doing it more new, like, in more of the early strategy ideation place. There's partners out there and kind of AI tools you can use to say, hey, I mean, actually, you can just go do this on ChatGPT. Like, go do this now. Like, say, build a perceptual map for my category and give it the right prompts, and I guarantee it'll come back with a pretty good perceptual map that you don't have to actually do research on.
Nice.
It's actually
Yeah.
kind of scary.
Love
I've been
that.
at conferences where they're like, hey, answer these, partners are like, answer these 3 questions and we can give you the start of a creative brief. And I've tested it in my brands and it's actually pretty good. So like
Yeah. Wow.
all of those things, or semiotics is another good example, right? So for us looking at like the codes and the cues of the category, whether that's advertising or packaging, all those tools can get you actually a pretty good starting point without having to do as much either firsthand research, talking to
Mhm.
people and humans, or a lot of desk research and synthesizing stuff we know, or like, looking through competitive ads and stuff. So I'd say for me, it's less about one tool to rule them all. It's more about the mindset of how
Yeah.
you squeeze some of that stuff out throughout the whole funnel. On-demand talent is something that has been so helpful. So, as a leader on your team, you sometimes have short-term gaps like parental leave. Sometimes you have longer-term gaps, as people get promoted or rotate to different roles. And so what I love about on-demand talent is it's a system where you can bring in trusted insights, people to tackle either one. So I'll give you a few examples. Like on innovation, I had a full-time role gap and I was able to use on-demand talent to say, okay, I'm going to plug you in and you're going to go work on these innovation projects and work directly with marketing. And I know that you're experienced enough where you're going to be able to help them on their journey. And I'm there more just to kind of give you support and answer questions on kind of like business context and brand background.
Mhm.
So that ability to lean on that as I then went and recruited my awesome person who's here now in innovation has really been so fruitful. On trends work actually was something more so when we were in COVID, we were like, hey, we've got these big trends platforms that we know are changing. We've got like people have a craving for raving, people have a need for speed in like different ways than we had seen before. So like
Yeah.
connection and convenience, we were digging into. And so while my team was looking at kind of some other parts of trends and thinking more about how to then wire that in the business, we used on-demand talent to say, hey, help us just see what's out there and summarize a really good point of view to then be able to like work it into a broader narrative, a broader work stream. So that was, I would call it a bit more of like a bite-size on-demand talent usage that also was so helpful. And just like knowing that there are people that you can tap into on a kind of a project basis or more of a, hey, I need you to plug in this role and actually just like do the project work for a bit. The other thing I would say that's a bit of a connection of the conversation that of like, what are we shifting and what's good about on-demand talent is in general, what's been working so well, I think too, is where can we do more of those bite-sized summaries versus like
Mhm.
deep research?
Mm.
So that thought leadership, like I'm finding myself when my CMO comes to me and asks me questions, I think as an insights person, sometimes your instinct is like, okay, what are we gonna go ask consumers about this or observe, their behavior? I'm pushing myself even to be like, hey, I can give you an answer in 5 to 10 slides of what we know and so what, and now what do we do about it in a week and get it off the email and just come back and have a conversation with you. And usually that's actually pretty good enough. So
Yeah. Love
that's
that.
something in a shift away of working that I've done recently on like driving consideration on big brands or taste appeal and like how what we say in show or what does value mean today for the spirit shopper. Like those are all things I've been able to do pretty quickly with just good old desk research and combining what we know and expertise. And so I say that as a shift away of working, but also a way that on-demand talent can help, right? Like
Yeah.
your stable of experienced people can also help with that. And that's a way we've used you and partnered with you in the past too on trends.
Love that. Yes. And make the past research you've done work harder for you too, right?
Exactly. Exactly right. What it really helped me do is I was able to spend my time focusing more on like, okay, how do I think about this new leader coming in, onboarding him into the insights we have, our kind of ways of working, how we, get the best insights possible to fuel your innovation strategy. Think more about kind of that bigger picture wiring and networking and, actionability and all that, while then the fractional talent or the on-demand talent was able to just like keep the work running. So we had a couple of really big meaty things on, I won't say the brands, but some of our big brands, and actually really digging in deeply as well into one of our growing categories was another big work stream that she led. And so really it helped me focus on some of the kind of bigger questions that I couldn't have given a external person on, like things you need the institutional knowledge and relationship building and kind of time investment to do in a different way. While then I could still keep the innovation pipeline and like the commercialization strategy of one of our key categories, like running really smoothly. Again, could like trust her to just like do it, knock it out of the park, keep it moving, and more just give her support behind the scenes on just questions she wouldn't know, like sitting in spirits every day.